Welcome back to Dream It, Build It, Make It, the series where we're talking to some of the people behind the best customer experiences. I'm your host, Michael Heward, Manager of Content Marketing here at Iterable, and I'm very excited for the conversation we have today. I'm joined by CEO and co-founder of geofencing platform Radar, Nick Patrick. Nick, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into our deep conversation today, I was hoping to get a little bit more about you, a little bit more about what Radar does, and so to kind of tell our audience what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Nick Patrick, co-founder and CEO. We started Radar about 5 years ago to make location really easy. Location tracking, geofencing for consumer apps, for logistics apps. I have a background in product. My co-founder Kobe and I met at Foursquare, so we've been thinking about location for a while. Historically, I've kind of focused on the product and engineering side of the house and other CEO things. And my co-founder Kobe has thought a lot about the go-to-market sales, BD side of things.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, it's exciting stuff that you guys are doing. But before we dive into that, I'm very curious about you, Nick, as the consumer. What kind of customer experience do you look for? What are the features of a good customer experience? Maybe some brands that you think are doing a really good job these days.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think great brands and great customer experiences are built on consistency. And that might be every time you go to a fast food restaurant, you get your food on time, it's hot, it tastes good. It might be a consistent experience for an event that you're going to. Could sort of be anything. But I think consistency is one thing. I think the second thing is just frictionless, right? If I'm buying something, there's a transaction, there's an interaction. The more frictionless it is, the better. So when I think about great customer experiences, I think about experiences that are frictionless and consistent. One or two that come to mind for me. It's like insanely easy for me to buy stuff on Amazon. I mean, I've got Amazon Prime, everything set up. It's that sort of one click / swipe to buy. And stuff invariably shows up at my house like the next day or the day after. It's amazing. To me, that's frictionless. One swipe and transaction done, and it's consistent. I kind of get what I expect on time. Apple, I just got a new set of AirPods, and I think that's another good example of obviously super high quality hardware. Open up the case, they just automatically pair to my phone. So I think in both cases, frictionless and consistent. We think a lot about how location enables great experiences too, and I think location can make frictionless experiences possible in the sense that you can kind of bridge digital experiences and physical experience if you do it right. But consistency is challenging, right? It can be hard to build kind of great, consistent experiences with location. So we think a lot about how location can be used to solve the consistency thing and the friction thing to power great experiences.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those things where consistency is great, but at scale, it becomes a lot more difficult. And people sometimes maybe like surprises, but not necessarily every time they're trying to buy something from you or with your brand. So before we dive fully into geofencing, I'm curious, there's a bunch of different terms out there: geofencing, geotargeting, geolocation, what have you. What is the difference there, or are they kind of the same, interchangeable? How should people be looking at these different terms?
Yeah, they're all sort of related. I think with respect to geolocation, obviously, the smartphones that we're carrying around, they have GPS receivers in them. And you can pretty easily say, hey, give me the current, latitude and longitude coordinates of the device. But a lat long is kind of meaningless without any context, right? It's just two numbers and you can plot stuff on the map. So geofencing is a way to sort of make sense of geolocation data and to trigger actions based off of it. So you might take a latitude and longitude and say, oh, this is inside of a geofence that represents a store, or inside of a geofence that represents a stadium or an airport. And from there, you might trigger messaging in an app experience. You might unlock app features that are relevant to that location. And then geo-targeting is basically saying, hey, I have some geolocation data. I have this context, maybe from a geofence or some other source. Let me kind of target content accordingly. So we think a lot about geofencing, helping you set up virtual perimeters around the kind of places and things that you care about, and also making the collection of geolocation data in a privacy-friendly way, easy as well.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes total sense. Especially the geo-targeting versus the other two. It makes total sense as a marketer. Just targeting. You're getting good content to the right person. So as we're talking about this, and it's kind of the question I'm sure everybody has to deal with, but the impact of COVID, like with geofencing, where everyone is. They're all kind of at home. So how has that been? How's that changed over the last year? Like what's been the common trend going on there?
2020 was an interesting year for us. Obviously we're pretty heavily indexed to people moving around the world. And about a year ago, that came to a screeching halt. We had been working with a bunch of travel companies to power, on-trip experiences when you're on vacation, helpful location reminders, things like that. We were doing a couple pilots with a movie theater chain, with a amusement park operator, and all of that shut down. That being said, we did see a lot of new location use cases emerging. Curbside pickup, buy online, pickup in store just exploded last year. A lot of companies investing in delivery, and those done right can all have location tracking components. So I would say, like in some verticals, the focus shifted away. In some verticals, the focus really intensified on location. The other thing that we saw is like people spent a lot of time on their phones and computers last year. Everything went digital first. And with that, I think expectations for digital experiences were raised, right? You're spending all your time on your phone, you're going to use the best apps, the best digital experiences. As COVID subsides, we're starting to see everyone move around the physical world again. We think about how digital and physical experiences can be bridged at Radar. And I think we're going to see a lot of these habits that got established around order ahead, curbside pickup, continue. And we're also going to see people go on vacation again and people go to movie theaters again. And so we're really excited about what 2021 and beyond holds in terms of where things are going.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think there are any kind of new use cases that are popping up? Like you're mentioning a movie theater. I'd never even considered that, because if you're going to a movie theater, presumably you already know what movie you're seeing. Like, are there new use cases you're seeing pop up or potentially could see popping up?
It's a great question. I think we saw a lot of interest in kind of contactless experiences focused on safety or density. Interestingly enough, I feel like people, maybe they're just sort of eager to put COVID behind them, are thinking a lot about kind of the classic use cases of what are on-premise app experiences. How does the app experience change when you're at a store, at a restaurant, at an airport? Thinking about smarter messaging using location, helpful reminders as you start moving around the world again. And again, I think a lot of these kind of more operational use cases, curbside pickup, delivery, are here to stay. If anything, we're starting to see, retailers and restaurant chains kind of reimagine their stores around order ahead. A lot of folks investing in drive-through or special pickup areas, just really thinking a lot about bridging the digital and physical and making things as frictionless and consistent as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you mentioned privacy earlier, and so that's kind of something that I think the average consumer will immediately think of when they think of geofencing, and just the idea of someone else knowing where they are at all times in some capacity. So how do brands that maybe want to start using geofencing get started in incorporating it in their customer experience without kind of crossing that boundary into, I guess you could say, like creepiness? Some people might consider it a little bit invasive.
I think getting clear opt-in and consent is really critical. 3 or 4 years ago, it was really easy to request location permissions, always on location permissions, without providing any value to end users, and reselling that data, using it for attribution and targeting, but not using it to power great app experiences. And Apple and Google have closed that gap, right? They've introduced new background location permissions, new review processes. So, gone are the days of being able to just kind of willy-nilly request location permissions or collect location data without adding any value to the end user. So I would say, like, getting clear opt-in and consent, if the user knows exactly what they're opting into and signing up for, adding value for the end user, this should be something that they want to opt into. It's a more convenient pickup experience. or it's a store locator that shows you, stores nearby. It's, special reminders or offers tied to location. I think as long as you're getting opt-in consent and there's value for the end user, you do this in a really great way, and it can be a really valuable experience, kind of a win-win. I feel like folks run into trouble when there's a gap between what consumers think they're signing up for, and what's actually happening. And I think that the best experiences, the best permissions prompts, the best privacy policies eliminate that gap. And if you do that, you'll be in a great spot.
Yeah, the transparency is really, really important. I think a lot of companies I've seen just kind of get by a quick message of explaining how they're going to use the data and how that value gets passed on to the consumer. I think that's something that could really help here. And so you were mentioning different regulations, like Apple and Google make some changes. So how does the market team get started in using geofencing while maintaining compliance with a lot of different regulations changing seemingly constantly?
Yeah, I mean, I think working to make sure that you're getting clear opt-in and consent is important. Make sure that your permissions prompts, your privacy policy is complete and up to date. Minimizing data collection, for certain use cases, if the user opts in, always on, background geolocation with helpful reminders could make sense. But if you're building a curbside pickup experience, for example, and the user's driving 15 minutes to pick up their food, start tracking with very clear notification to the user, and end it once the order is complete. If you're a travel app and you're building on-trip experiences, maybe you start up location services when the vacation starts and you shut it down at the end. But also say that if you are collecting location data, using it for geofencing, you can be really conservative in the data retention policy that you're using, right? Maybe you're only keeping this data around for a couple of days to do some very basic, triggered push notifications or targeting. If you're collecting as much data as possible, you're keeping it around for years, then you potentially run into trouble. But clear opt-in and consent, minimizing data collection. And the last thing is sort of a shameless plug, working with a platform that has tooling for all of this stuff. Yeah. To tracking options to minimize data collection, really robust privacy and security controls can kind of make your life easier, and eliminate some of the guesswork rather than rolling your own solution here and trying to navigate all of this for yourself.
I like that, especially about the data collection. It's quality of data versus quantity. You don't need everything as long as you get the right stuff to be able to give that customer experience. So with all that in mind, do you have any brands that you think are just doing a great job with geofencing that someone could look at as a good example to potentially model after?
Yeah, I'll name a couple of our customers that I think are doing this really well. One is American Eagle Outfitters. They just rolled out buy online, pick up in store to several hundred stores nationwide, and using location data for arrival detection. So when you get close to the store, in-store staff will get notified. They'll start assembling your order, so you can pull into a parking space, walk into the store, get it, and be good to go. And they've also paired that with in-store loyalty features. So we're seeing a lot of retailers and restaurant brands kind of pairing a great order ahead experience with a great loyalty experience. So once you actually get on premises, you can use location to unlock in-store offers or unlock an in-store loyalty or payments experience. Another radar customer is doing something really cool here is Raising Cane's, which is a chicken fast food restaurant based primarily in the Southeast. And they actually use location to do order firing. So when you're about 5 minutes away, they'll drop the chicken fingers in the fryer, and that ensures that when you get there, order is hot and fresh every time. And I think folks who have kind of, spun up a quick V1 of BOPIS or curbside without using location, will sort of end up with experiences where customers will arrive on premises and kind of not know where to go, or they'll sit in the parking, spot for 10 minutes waiting for their order. Food gets cold, hasn't been, prepared yet. So we're seeing some really cool operational use cases with geofencing in our customer base that just immediately jumped to mind for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think the loyalty program mixed with the geofencing you're talking about, that's a really good example of the frictionless experience that you were mentioning before. Interesting. There's no Raising Cane's near me in San Francisco, but I'm hoping other chains near me can start doing that.
Hopefully every restaurant and retail chain is building really frictionless, convenient, location powered experiences. So something on the West Coast soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And speaking of looking forward, so looking to the future, are there any gaps in the customer experience overall that you think are there's an opportunity for growth there? Like where do you think brands can really improve their experience or their relationship with customers?
Yeah, I think there are a few, blind spots today. Obviously a lot of the, apps and consumer experiences that we use are location aware, right? You sort of take for granted that open up Yelp and you can easily find restaurants nearby, or you open the Uber app and you can just kind of, immediately punch in a destination and get driven there. But, I think a lot of apps, brick and mortar apps, might be, digital marketplaces like, rewards apps or real estate apps, might be, travel apps, airlines, hotels, might be, kind of entertainment apps like sports gambling, just haven't quite built location into their core consumer experience yet. Just, some crazy examples. Like if I open the ESPN app and I'm sitting at, once, kind of in-person sporting events resume again, should know that I'm at the stadium, know that I'm at the game, and show me, content scores relevant to that game. Yeah. Every travel app should understand whether I'm sitting at home on my couch or I'm traveling in a new city. And when I'm sitting at home, it should probably help me book my next trip. And when I'm on a trip, it should probably show me interesting and relevant things nearby. We've already talked about some of the use cases for retail and food. So I think, apps knowing where you are and tailoring messaging and features accordingly is still just extremely kind of underrealized and underutilized, and just a great way for brands to deliver frictionless, convenient customer experiences and to, increase engagement, improve operations, and kind of everything that comes with that. The other thing that I think we think a lot about is just kind of how can those brands use their own first-party location data, people using their app on premises, to optimize the physical experience. And there are blind spots right now around, we talked to some retail and restaurant brands that kind of don't even know what their average wait times are, in terms of you walk into a store, you pull into a parking space, like what is the average wait time? What is my baseline? And there are other, I think, kind of physical stats around repeat visit rate, how much time are folks spending on premises, whatever that you can start to solve with location data. And I feel like, a lot of brands will use engagement platforms like Iterable to eliminate these blind spots on the kind of digital side. We think a lot about how we can eliminate these blind spots on the physical side and kind of seamlessly bridge the two. So I think there are huge opportunities here.
I like that. Yeah, that's good, especially with the digital transformation that has happened in the past year, like completely being expedited. I think a lot of companies probably maybe went mobile in a lot of ways, and that's a good next step as the world starts opening up. Well, that's all the questions I got for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. I learned a lot. I hope our viewers can definitely take some of these insights and get their geofencing journey started. If anyone has any questions, how can they find you?
Yeah, so you can visit our website at radar.io, and you can also find us on Twitter at Radar Labs. Follow us on LinkedIn as well, but publish all sorts of content about how you can build frictionless and consistent experiences with location. If you're interested, obviously would love to chat with you about it. You can reach out to our team, get a demo. But yeah, really great to join and chat through all these things. I think there are a ton of exciting consumer experiences powered by location that smartest brands are unlocking. So we're just really excited to see where this goes in 2021 and beyond.
Very cool. Well, I'll put those links in the description below. And in the meantime, thanks again. And we'll see you all next time on Dream It, Build It, Make It.